Okay, imagine for a second you're in a bit of a bind, a tight spot.
Uh-huh.
You desperately need, let's say, $2,000 for something urgent, but all you've got is, like, a single $20 bill.
Ouch. Yeah, not ideal.
Right. So you're stressing, and maybe your 5-year-old kid sees you.
Yeah.
They grab your 20, find a pen, and just innocently draw 2 big zeros next to the 20.
Yeah. Making it $2,000.
Exactly. Hands it back all proud. Here you go. Now, obviously, that's sweet, but it's,
Yeah.
well, it's absurd, right? Completely naive. That's just a ruined 20.
Nobody's accepting that as $2,000.
No way. But here's the kicker. What if I told you some of the world's top economic minds are thinking along kind of similar lines, not for $20, but for the biggest economy on Earth?
It sounds completely fantastical, I know, but that's what we're diving into today. A truly mind-bending idea that's actually been seriously discussed in economic circles.
Which is?
The idea that the United States could mint a single platinum coin, value, a
Yeah.
cool $1 trillion.
$1 trillion
Wow.
on a coin.
Yep. To basically sidestep the whole debt ceiling drama and pay its bills, pay off creditors like China, Japan, Saudi Arabia.
Wow. Okay, so yeah, $1 trillion single coin. It sounds like something out of a comic book, but maybe. Maybe it's a real possibility.
That's what we're going to unpack.
Yeah.
How this seemingly absurd concept could actually happen. We'll look at the weird legal loophole that makes it possible, where the idea even came from. It's a wild story.
And what serious economists think about it, too. So stick with us. We're cutting through the noise to give you the essential insights into this, well, incredibly high-stakes situation.
Definitely high stakes. And it all starts with this political standoff over the U.S. debt ceiling.
Right. So let's quickly recap the debt ceiling itself. For anyone unfamiliar, it's basically just a legal limit on how much money the U.S. government is allowed to borrow.
And the current limit is,
Yeah.
well, it's a number so big it's hard to grasp. $31,381 billion.
31 trillion. And the key thing is, the U.S. actually hit that limit back on January 19th, 2023.
Correct. And without being able to borrow more, the government faces this huge funding gap because, government spending is way higher than the revenue it takes in from taxes and things.
So borrowing is how they make up the difference. It's how they pay the bills, essentially.
Exactly. Without it, they can't cover their obligations.
Which sets the stage for this.
Right.
Well, this intense political fight we're seeing. You've got the Democratic administration on one side, the Republican-controlled House on the other.
And the Republicans are saying, okay, we'll raise the debt limit, but we want major spending cuts first.
Which the Democrats are obviously resisting. It's turned into this massive game of chicken, almost. A high-stakes fiscal showdown where each side is trying to force the other's hand, hoping the other side blinks first.
And you've got Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen basically shouting from the rooftops about how urgent this is.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, back on January 13th, she sent this letter to the House Speaker warning, hey, we're going to hit the limit on the 19th. Then on the 19th, she sends an update saying they've started using what are called extraordinary measures, basically accounting maneuvers to keep paying bills temporarily.
But that's just buying time, right? Not a fix.
Exactly, just buying time. And the clock is ticking really fast now. These measures, they're only expected to last until Monday, June 5th, 2023. That's the X date, the deadline.
June 5th. And if they don't raise the ceiling by then?
The consequences sound pretty dire, according to Yellen. Severe damage to the U.S. economy, falling living standards for Americans, potentially triggering chaos in global financial markets.
Not good. And this isn't the first time we've been here, is it? I remember a similar fight back in 2021.
That's right, October 2021. The limit was lower then, around $28.9 trillion. But yeah, same kind of standoff. And even back then, the White House was reportedly looking at, well, unconventional options.
Which brings us back.
Precisely. Back to the $1 trillion platinum coin. And the origin story is just fascinating.
Okay, lay it on us. Where did this wild idea come from? Not some Treasury Department brainstorming session, I take it.
Not even close. It actually first appeared, get this, in the comments section of an online blog.
A blog comment? Seriously?
Seriously. The Daily Costs, back in May 2010, during another one of these debt ceiling fights, a user going by the name Beowulf, who later turned out to be an American lawyer named Carlos Mucha, just threw the idea out there in a comment.
That's unbelievable. So a random blog comment somehow morphs into a potential solution being discussed at the highest levels. How? What's the actual legal hook? And why platinum?
Okay, so the why platinum is key. It comes down to a specific bit of U.S. law, an amendment to the Coinage Act from 1996.
Okay.
This law gives the Secretary of the Treasury really unique, broad authority specifically over platinum coins.
Hmm.
See, for gold, silver, copper coins, there are all sorts of rules about sizes, denominations, how many they can make.
Right.
But for platinum, the law basically says the Secretary can decide the specifications, varieties, quantities, denominations, and inscriptions. It's incredibly open-ended.
Denominations, too. So they can just say, this coin is worth $1 trillion.
Legally, yes. That's the loophole. The original intent, by the way, was probably just to let the U.S. Mint make and sell fancy platinum commemorative coins to collectors, for a profit.
Like those special edition ones you see advertised.
Exactly. But the way the law was written, it left the door wide open. It relies on this concept called seigniorage.
Seigniorage, that's the profit the government makes from making money, right? Like the difference between the face value of a coin and what it actually costs to produce.
You got it. And for platinum coins, under this law, the power to determine that face value, and thus the seigniorage, is basically unlimited. The Secretary just declares it.
It shows how these sort of obscure legislative details can suddenly become massively important, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Unforeseen consequences. So, yeah, that's the legal basis. It's weird, but it seems to be there.
Okay, so let's say the absolute worst happens. Political talks completely break down. Default is looming. How would minting this coin actually work? Walk us through the process.
Okay, step by step, it's actually pretty straightforward, in theory at least.
Yeah.
Step 1. The president orders the Treasury Secretary to mint a $1 trillion platinum coin. Critically, it has to be a coin.
Why a coin specifically? Why not just print a $1 trillion bill?
Because only the Federal Reserve, the central bank, has the authority to issue paper currency. The Treasury's authority here is specifically about coins, thanks to that loophole.
Gotcha. Okay, so order given. Then what?
Step 2. The U.S. Mint physically creates the coin, which apparently they could do relatively quickly, maybe within hours.
Hours. Wow.
Step 3. The Treasury takes this freshly minted $1 trillion coin and deposits it into its main bank account at the Federal Reserve. It's called the Treasury General Account, or TGA.
So they just walk it over, metaphorically speaking.
Metaphorically, yeah. They deposit the physical coin. Step 4. The Federal Reserve then credits the Treasury's account with $1 trillion.
How? Do they just type the number in?
Essentially, yes. It's an electronic bookkeeping entry. The Fed adds $1 billion to the Treasury's balance. It's how digital money moves in the system. But obviously, the context here is unprecedented.
And then the money's just there.
Step 5. Yep. The Treasury now has $1 trillion sitting in its account ready to use. They can pay salaries, Social Security benefits, military expenses, and crucially, pay the interest and principal on U.S. debt, including what's owed to foreign creditors like China, Japan, Saudi Arabia.
So it immediately solves the cash flow problem caused by the debt ceiling.
Instantly. It injects massive liquidity without needing Congress to raise the borrowing limit.
Okay, and what happens to the coin afterwards? Let's say the political crisis eventually passes, Congress raises the debt ceiling like normal. Does this $1 trillion coin just sit in a vault at the Fed forever?
Theoretically, no. Step 6, if you like. Once the debt ceiling is raised and things are back to normal, the Treasury could retrieve the coin from the Fed and melt it down, destroy it, like it never happened. It's envisioned as a temporary emergency measure, a kind of fiscal escape hatch, not a permanent change to how money works.
It still sounds, well, like that kid drawing zeros on the $20 bill, like creating money from thin air, doesn't it? How do serious economists justify this? It feels almost too easy, kind of silly still.
Yeah, and that's the initial reaction, right?
Yeah.
Silly, naive, magic money. But here's where supporters push back. They say, think about what happens normally when the debt ceiling is raised.
Okay. The Treasury issues new bonds, borrows more money.
Right. They sell new bonds, and money flows into the Treasury's account. Where did that money come from? It was created through the process of bond issuance and central bank operations. In a way, that's also creating funds that weren't physically there before.
Okay. I see the parallel.
So the argument is the $1 trillion coin is just a different mechanism to achieve a similar outcome. It bypasses the political constraint of the debt ceiling using a legal loophole. But the underlying economic function, getting funds into the Treasury's account to pay obligations, isn't fundamentally different from issuing more debt.
So it challenges the idea that bond issuance is the only legitimate way the government gets funds beyond taxation.
Exactly. It highlights that in our modern fiat money system, where money isn't backed by gold or anything physical, money creation is often about legal frameworks and accounting entries, whether it's bonds or a giant platinum coin.
And this isn't just online commentators anymore, right? You mentioned serious
Oh,
economists.
yeah, definitely not just fringe internet chatter now. Paul Krugman, for instance, Nobel laureate in economics, he wrote about it in the New York Times, basically endorsing it.
Yay.
Yep. He argued it was a viable way to avoid the catastrophic damage of a U.S. default caused by, political obstructionism. His view, and that of other supporters, is that using the coin is far preferable to deliberately crashing the economy just because Congress can't agree to pay the bills it already racked up.
So for them, it's about preventing a self-inflicted wound, the lesser of two evils compared to default.
Pretty much. Maintain the full faith and credit of the U.S., avoid global panic, bypass the political hostage-taking. That's the core argument for it.
So what does the government stand on this right now? Has Treasury Secretary Yellen said, yes, we'll do it, or no way?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. When she was asked directly about the coin back in January 2023, she didn't say it was legal.
Oh, what did she say?
She expressed doubt, or rather uncertainty, about whether the Federal Reserve would be legally obligated to accept the coin if the Treasury deposited it.
Ah, so putting the onus on the Fed. That's subtle.
Very subtle phrasing, yeah. It kind of sidestepped the legality for the Treasury and focused on the Fed's potential reaction. The implication being, maybe, that if the Fed did accept it, well, then the path is clear.
And would the Fed accept it? Is there a legal reason they could refuse?
That's debated, but many legal scholars argue the Fed probably would have to accept it, that they don't really have the authority to refuse a deposit from the U.S. Treasury, regardless of the denomination of the coin.
So Yellen didn't rule it out. She kept the possibility alive, perhaps as leverage, or just keeping options open.
Could be both.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, why keep such a seemingly outlandish option even remotely on the table? Because the alternative is potentially so much worse.
A U.S. default.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The world's largest economy failing to pay its debts. The economic chaos that could unleash is almost unthinkable. So in that context, an idea that sounds silly or absurd,
Genuinely looks potentially pragmatic.
it could become the only option left to avoid complete disaster. It shifts from being this weird thought experiment to a potential emergency tool of last resort.
Wow. What a deep dive this has been.
Yeah.
We went from, like you said, that kid with the pen and the $20 bill,
Right.
all the way to a potential $1 trillion platinum coin, something born from political gridlock, and this really unexpected legal loophole.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how our complex systems of law, politics, and economics interact in ways you'd never predict, and how crises can force people to consider truly radical solutions.
Absolutely.